In 6 days, the boy's sleeve bears a black SS rune, while his inner pocket holds a torn scrap of Hebrew prayer, ink against ink, faith stitched under a death's head. In 6 days, the train lists will be finalized, and names will harden into destinations like verdicts. He stands in a mirror that smells of lye and cheap tobacco, watching a uniform swallow him. By the end of this story, you will know how a teenager can survive by becoming a lie so convincing it terrifies him, and how that lie can be weaponized step by step, corridor by corridor, to steal knowledge from the men who believe they own the future. He is 17, narrow-shouldered, with hands that still look like a student's. His papers say he is something else, a Volksdeutscher orphan from the East, German enough to be useful, insignificant enough to be replaceable. The forged stamp is slightly off-center. A bureaucrat's eye could catch it in 2 seconds. 2 seconds is the difference between a new assignment and a bullet behind the ear. The plan is paradox, and it is stated plainly early because there is no other way to survive it. He must perform the enemy's role so flawlessly that the enemy stops seeing him. He must wear the uniform, learn the protocols, memorize the cadence of obedience, and become the perfect recruit so he can listen from the inside, watch the SS commanders, and pass their intentions outward before the intentions become smoke. The city is layered like a set built for confession. Street level, trams, ration lines, shuttered shops with the sound of boots echoing in the gaps. Beneath, sewers that steam in winter, tunnels that carry runoff and rumors. Above, windows blacked out, curtains pinned. Every level has a different rule for who belongs. He has a deadline because the SS has schedules, and schedules are a kind of honesty. A clerk in a neighboring office has whispered that the next transport is being expanded, not reduced. The forms are already being typed. Once typed, they will be copied. Once copied, they will be filed. Once filed, they will be executed. He cannot stop a transport with courage. He can only stop it with information delivered quickly enough to change a decision, to disrupt a route, to move people before a door closes. The first phase is admission. Get in, be seen, be logged, be assigned. He has to pass the gate without trembling, because trembling is a signature. He has to salute without exaggeration, because exaggeration is suspicion. He has to answer questions with the boredom of someone who has nothing to hide. On the morning he reports, the courtyard is slick with frost. A guard booth squats by the iron gate like a jaw. Above the entrance, a slogan is painted in clean white letters. Clean letters over dirty work. The boy doesn't look at it for long. Staring is a kind of dissent. A sergeant with a cigarette stump for a mouth takes his papers. The sergeant's fingers are yellow, nails split. He scans the document, then the boy's face, then the document again. A pause, a longer pause. Somewhere behind them, a truck backfires. The boy forces his shoulders to remain loose, his breath to remain regular. He makes his eyes mildly annoyed, as if this delay is an inconvenience rather than a threat. Name, the sergeant asks. He answers the name on the paper. He answers it the way a boy answers his own name, without effort. He has practiced it until it feels like a bruise. Birthplace. He names a town that has been folded into maps so many times, it is now more rumor than place. The sergeant grunts, stamps, waves him through. The iron gate opens with a sound like something heavy giving up. The boy steps into the compound and understands immediately that the geography here is designed to reduce choices. Straight paths, hard corners, doors that lock from the outside, windows too high to reach. The air smells of disinfectant and boiled cabbage, and behind it, faintly, of coal smoke and wet wool. Inside, the protocol is a machine. A clerk assigns him a number. A quartermaster measures him without looking into his eyes. A barber cuts his hair to regulation length. Each step is small, procedural, and that is what makes it dangerous. When cruelty is procedural, it doesn't need hatred to function. He is given a uniform. It is not new. It has been worn. The collar is stiff with sweat that isn't his. The insignia is the only part that looks clean. He slips it on, and the fabric settles across his ribs like an accusation. In a washroom, he studies himself. The cap shadows his brow. The field gray makes his face look paler. A boy disappears. A symbol remains. He can't afford to flinch at his own reflection. Flinching becomes a habit, and habits show. His first assignment is not glamorous. It never is. He is sent to the administrative wing, ground floor, to run messages between offices, to carry folders, to fetch coffee, to stand outside doors and be ignored. It is perfect. Messengers are invisible until they are not. The building is a rectangle of corridors. The central corridor runs east-west, linoleum worn into paths by thousands of boots. Offices branch off like ribs. Every door has a plaque. Every plaque is a clue. The boy begins to map it in his head, the way other boys memorize football fields. He learns the shift changes. Morning shift, 0600 to 1400. Afternoon, 1400 to 2200. Night, 2200 to 0600. The officers come in later, leave earlier. The clerks stay. The guards rotate at the gate every 4 hours with a 10-minute overlap. The overlap is when faces change and mistakes happen. Mistakes are opportunities, but only if you can control them. He learns keys. There is a ring for corridor doors, held by the duty corporal, hung on a nail in the corridor by Office 12. There is a separate ring for the archive, held by the archive clerk, kept in a desk drawer locked with a small brass key worn on a chain around the clerk's neck. The brass key becomes a target in the boy's mind, but he does not reach for it yet. Reaching too soon is how amateurs die. He learns language, not vocabulary, tone. The SS commanders speak in clipped phrases that assume obedience. The administrators speak in long sentences that hide responsibility. The boy speaks as little as possible, and when he does, he keeps it neutral, slightly eager, like someone new and grateful to be included. He learns the building's blind spots. At the end of Corridor C, there is a window with a view into the courtyard. In the afternoon, sunlight hits the glass at an angle that makes anyone standing there hard to identify from down the hall. That becomes a place to pause, to read a label, to listen. He learns the rhythm of fear. It has footsteps, too. The second phase is access. Get close enough to hear what matters and to touch what can be copied without being missed. Information here lives on paper. Paper moves. Paper is counted. Paper has to be replaced if it disappears. The trick is not to steal it, but to borrow it without leaving a gap. His handler, though no one uses that word, waits for him outside the compound on the civilian side, where the world pretends to be ordinary. A woman with a shopping basket, a scarf pulled tight, face arranged in the flat expression of someone exhausted by survival. She is resistance, but she looks like nobody. The protocol for contact is simple because complexity fails under pressure. Once every 3 days, at 20:30, he will walk to the corner bakery on the route permitted to personnel. He will not enter. He will tie his shoelace at the lamppost, a gesture that means he has something. If the woman passes and adjusts her scarf with her left hand, it means it is safe to drop. If she passes and touches the basket handle twice, it means he is being watched. In that case, he keeps walking and swallows whatever he is carrying, metaphorically or literally. The dead drop is a loose brick behind the bakery, low where rain has eroded the mortar. Inside the cavity, a wrapped matchbox. Inside the matchbox, micronotes written in pencil, folded so tight the creases become seams. He is not trained by an academy, he is trained by necessity. His pencil must be light enough to avoid imprinting on the paper beneath. His handwriting must be small enough to fit, but clear enough to be read. His notes must be specific: times, names, rooms, directives, not feelings. Feelings are heavy and useless in a drop. On his second day, he runs a message to Office 19, a door guarded by a young SS man with pale eyelashes and a face like raw dough. The guard checks the folder, sees it is routine, waves him in. Inside, two commanders speak over a map pinned to the wall. The map has red lines. Red lines mean movement. Movement means bodies. The boy lowers his eyes, places the folder on the table, waits. He is a piece of furniture. He listens anyway. "Increase the quota," one commander says, voice calm as if discussing grain. "Rail capacity has been confirmed for next week." "From the Northern District?" the other asks. "Yes, and the lists must be cleaned. No exemptions, no delays." The boy's stomach tightens, not as emotion, but as calculation. Next week, Northern District, no exemptions. He repeats it in his head until the words lose meaning and become code. When he leaves, he does not run. Running is guilt. He walks at the pace of a dutiful messenger, folder tucked against his chest, boots striking the floor in time with the building's heartbeat. That night, at 20:30, he ties his shoelace at the lamppost. The woman passes. Left hand adjusts scarf. Safe. He slips behind the bakery as if urinating, fingers into the loose brick, matchbox in, brick pressed back. He keeps walking, breathing through his nose, because breath through the mouth is panic. The third phase is extraction, not just hearing directives, but confirming them with documents. Spoken orders can be denied. Typed orders cannot. The archive is on the second floor, behind a door labeled innocuously as records. Inside, shelves, boxes, files tied with string. The air is paper dry, dust thick enough to taste. The archive clerk is a thin man with spectacles and a cough that sounds permanent. He guards his keys like a priest guards relics. The boy's job gives him an excuse to be near the archive. He delivers files. He retrieves files. He learns which forms require which signatures. He learns that transport orders are filed under a code, not under transport. The Germans love codes. Codes make cruelty feel administrative. He watches the clerk's habits. At 10:15 each day, the clerk goes to the lavatory at the end of Corridor B, leaving the archive door locked, but the keyring dangling from his neck. He does not remove it. He does not hang it. He takes it with him even into the stall. Paranoia is consistent. At 12:40, the clerk eats lunch at his desk: bread, sausage, mustard. He drinks coffee from a chipped mug. As he eats, he unhooks the keyring and places it on the desk beside the mug because the chain irritates his collar when he chews. He does it every day, without thinking. That is the kind of habit you can build a life or a death around. The boy cannot snatch the keys. The clerk would notice. Instead, the boy needs an impression. A wax press would be too obvious. He needs something that looks like nothing. In the supply closet, he finds a stub of soap, soft, pale, used. He breaks off a piece and hides it in his trouser pocket, wrapped in cloth. Soap is common. Soap is forgettable. Soap can hold a key's shape.
On the fourth day, at 12:38, he is in the corridor outside records with a stack of folders. He glances at his watch, a cheap thing issued to junior personnel. The second hand moves with indifferent precision. At 12:40, the clerk begins lunch. The key ring lands on the desk with a soft clink. The boy enters with the folders, apologizes for the interruption in a tone that implies he is sorry to exist. The clerk waves him in, mouth full. "Put it there," the clerk says. The boy sets the folders down. Then, with a motion that seems like adjusting the stack, he lets his left hand drift toward the keys. His fingers brush metal. He does not grasp them. He merely nudges them closer to the edge of the desk, nearer to his own side. He talks while he works, because silence draws attention. "The corporal said these needed to be filed before the afternoon courier," he says, voice low. The clerk grunts. The boy's right hand reaches into his pocket, pulls the cloth-wrapped soap fragment, and places it on the desk as if it were an eraser. His palm covers it. Under his palm, he presses the soap against the brass archive key for half a second. Half a second. Pressure. Release. He slides the soap back into the cloth, into his pocket without looking. Then he salutes and leaves. No drama. No sweating. He feels sweat anyway, under his arms, in his spine, but he keeps his gait even. Later, in the barracks lavatory, he unwraps the soap. A small, clean impression of the key's teeth is embedded in it. Not perfect, but enough. Now he needs a copy, a real key. For that, he needs a locksmith, and locksmiths are watched. So he uses the city's underlayer. The resistance contact is not the woman alone. It is a network of hands that never meet. He puts the soap impression into a matchbox, wraps it in wax paper to keep it from deforming, and drops it at the bakery. 2 days later, he receives a new matchbox back, inside a key cut from soft metal, edges rough. It will work, but only if used gently. If it sticks, if it squeals, it will be heard. The fourth phase is timing. Choose a window when the archive can be opened without anyone noticing the door has been opened. The archive door is in view of corridor B. The corridor is patrolled at 30-minute intervals by a guard who walks from the stairwell to the end window and back. His route takes 7 minutes. There is a gap of 23 minutes between passes, but not all gaps are safe. Clerks move. Messengers move. Chance moves. The boy observes the patrol for 3 days. He writes the times in his head, then on a scrap he destroys. 0910, 0940, 1010, 1310, 1340, 1410, like tides. He chooses the afternoon because after lunch, the building is sluggish. People digest, attention fades. The guard's steps become less sharp. On day 5 at 1342, he is assigned to deliver a folder to Office 7 near the archive. He carries the folder, but the folder is an excuse. His true cargo is a thin sheet of carbon paper hidden inside his cap, flattened, almost invisible. Carbon paper is not a camera, but it can copy by pressure. Press hard enough and the words transfer. Press too hard and the imprint shows through, and someone notices. The boy must press just enough to capture, not enough to confess. He reaches Office 7, delivers the folder, receives a signature. The officer inside does not look up. That is good. Indifference is camouflage. At 1347, he steps into corridor B. He listens. No footsteps, no voices. The air is quiet except for a distant typewriter. He takes out the rough-cut key, holds it in his fist to warm it. Cold metal sticks, warm metal slides.
At 13:48, he stands before the record store, shoulders squared as if he belongs there. He slips the key in. It resists a fraction. He does not force. He breathes once, slowly, and turns again, gently. The lock clicks, small, like a bone. He opens the door just enough to slip through, then closes it behind him without letting it latch loudly. Darkness, dust, the smell of paper and old ink. Inside, he does not turn on the lamp. Light under the door would betray him. He uses the thin daylight from a high window, enough to see shelves as shapes. He knows what he is looking for. Transport orders for the Northern District next week, filed under code. The Resistance has told him the code prefix used for relocations is EV, short for evacuation, a word that sounds humane. He searches for folders with EV and dates. His fingers move quickly but carefully. Paper is noisy. He slides files rather than yanking them. He keeps the strings tied. Untied strings look touched. He finds a folder marked EV12/3. He opens it just enough to see typed forms, names in columns, dates, destinations disguised as abbreviations, rail line numbers, signatures. His throat tightens, not as a sob, but as a narrowing of airways. His body tries to react. He refuses it. Reaction wastes time. Methodically, he pulls out the top form, places the carbon paper beneath the blank sheet he brought, and presses with the back of a spoon he stole from the mess hall. A spoon leaves no pencil marks. He presses in lines, moving steadily across the page, copying the key parts: date, line, code, number of persons, issuing officer. He cannot copy the names, too many. He copies the instruction paragraph and the destination code. That is what the Resistance can act on. He finishes one page in 90 seconds. He starts a second. His ear is tuned to the corridor. Sudden tension. At 13:55, he hears footsteps, boots, approaching, then slowing near the record store. The guard or someone else? He freezes, spoon held midair, breath held. The door handle jiggles once. The lock holds. The footsteps pause, then continue down the corridor. Perhaps the guard checked as routine. Perhaps a clerk tried the wrong door. Either way, it is a warning written in sound. He does not take a third page. He slides the forms back, aligns edges, closes the folder, returns it to the shelf exactly where it was. He backs to the door. Key out, lock turned, door eased open and shut without click. At 13:59, he is back in the corridor. He walks, not fast, not slow. He is another uniform moving through another afternoon. He returns to the barracks, enters the lavatory, and locks himself in a stall. He pulls the copied sheets from under his shirt, where he pressed them flat against his skin to hide them. The ink impression is faint, but legible. He stares at the destination code and feels something like nausea, not because he is sensitive, but because he understands the scale implied by a number typed so casually. Now comes the fifth phase, transmission without detection. The dead drop at the bakery is too exposed for full pages. Someone could retrieve it before the Resistance does. Instead, the Resistance has another protocol for urgent documents, a sewer handoff. The sewer entrance is in a courtyard behind a municipal building 2 streets away. The courtyard is accessible by a narrow alley used by trash collectors. The boy has a permit to be outside the compound for errands between 1600 and 1630, signed by a corporal who does not read what he signs. He will use that window tomorrow, day 6, to deliver the copies. But day 6 is also the day the transport lists will be finalized. The clock is not metaphor, it is paperwork. That night, he lies in a bunk with other recruits. They snore, mutter, dream. He keeps his face turned to the wall, eyes open. His mind runs the route like a drill. Barracks door, courtyard, gate, street, alley, courtyard, sewer hatch, ladder down, 3 paces to the left, where the wall is dry, where a resistance courier will be waiting in darkness. He also runs the moral arithmetic, because the uniform is not just cloth, it is a signal. Wearing it gives him access. Wearing it also makes civilians flinch when he passes. He sees a woman pull her child closer. He sees an old man look away. He knows what they think he is. He cannot correct them. Correction would be suicide. Complicity and resistance blur when your disguise harms the people you intend to save. He feels it as a weight in his chest, and he carries it because dropping it would mean dropping the mission. In the morning, an SS officer inspects the recruits. The officer's eyes are bright, amused, like a man who enjoys testing boundaries. He stops in front of the boy, taps the boy's boot with a riding crop.
"Where did you learn to shine like that?" the officer asks. "In the orphanage, Herr Untersturmführer," the boy answers, because he has rehearsed a life. The officer smiles slightly. The smile is dangerous, a sign of interest. "Orphans make good soldiers," the officer says. "They already know obedience." The boy nods, and inside something cold moves. Obedience is being praised as virtue, and he is being invited to embody it. He must accept the invitation without becoming the thing it wants. At 15:45, the corporal hands him the signed errand permit. "Take these to the supply office," the corporal says, tossing him a packet of requisition forms. The boy takes them, salutes, and feels the paper's weight. Official, real, a shield. At 1600, he exits the compound gate. The guard checks his permit, barely glances at his face. The boy's uniform is working. It makes him invisible by making him expected. He walks the approved route for 2 blocks, then turns at a corner where a bombed-out building creates a blind spot from the gate. The alley is narrow, garbage piled at the edges, the air sour. He keeps his pace steady, as if on official business. He holds the requisition packet in his left hand, and the carbon copies folded inside it, hidden between forms. At 1612, he reaches the municipal courtyard. The sewer hatch is a round iron cover near a wall stained with soot. A trash cart sits nearby. 2 men smoke at the far end, municipal workers, faces tired. They glance at him, see the uniform, look away. The uniform is a pass key. He sets the requisition packet on the ground, as if checking its contents, and uses his heel to scrape away debris covering the hatch's seam. His fingers find the metal ring. It is cold enough to sting. He lifts. The hatch groans. He pauses, listening. No one calls out. The smokers keep smoking. He lowers himself into the darkness, 1 boot on the ladder rung, then the other. The smell hits him. Ammonia, rot, wet stone. He forces himself not to gag. Gagging is loud. He pulls the hatch almost closed above him, leaving a sliver so it doesn't slam. Darkness thickens. He descends rung by rung until his boots touch shallow water. In the sewer, sound is different. It echoes softly, as if the world is wrapped in cloth. He moves 3 paces left, presses his back to the dry section of wall he memorized. He waits. A faint click. Stone against stone. Then a whisper from the darkness, in the local language, not German. Number. He answers with the code the resistance gave him, 17. A figure steps closer,
Face unseen, only hands visible, gloved. The hands hold a waxed pouch. The boy slips the carbon copies into the pouch. The hands close it, tuck it away. "Anything else?" the whisper asks. "Yes," the boy says, because he cannot stop himself. EV-12/3, next week, Northern District, destination code. He says it, softly, forcing the syllables steady. The courier's hand touches the boy's wrist once, a brief pressure that is not comfort, but acknowledgement. Then the courier disappears into darkness, water barely rippling.
The boy climbs back up. When he lifts the hatch, daylight cuts his eyes like a blade. He emerges, adjusts his cap, picks up the requisition packet. He is back in the courtyard in under 4 minutes. Time windows are everything. 4 minutes is survivable. At 16:20, he is back on the approved route, heading to the supply office. He delivers the requisitions. The clerk stamps them. Life continues as if no one has just moved the future through a sewer. But the compound is already shifting because information is not the only thing moving. Suspicion moves too. At 1700, he is summoned to an office he has never entered. Office 3, upstairs near the commander's wing. He walks there with the controlled dread of someone approaching an interrogation without knowing the questions. Inside, the Untersturmführer, the one with the riding crop, sits behind a desk. On the desk, the boy's file. A cigarette burns in an ashtray, smoke curling like a question. "Sit," the officer says. The boy sits on the edge of a chair, hands on knees. He keeps his face blank, slightly attentive. Blankness is safer than innocence. Innocence looks like performance. "You've been in the administrative wing," the officer says. "You move around." "Yes, Herr Untersturmführer." "You're quick." "Yes, Herr Untersturmführer." The officer flips through the file. Paper rustles, a sound that in this building often precedes pain. "Where were you yesterday at 1350? The officer asks casually. The boy's mind snaps to the archive. He answers with the truth that can be proven. "Delivering a folder to Office 7, Herr Untersturmführer. I received a signature." The officer smiles slightly. "And after?" The boy has already planned this. Returned to the corridor, went back to the messenger desk. The corporal can confirm I was there by 14:05. He does not mention Corridor B. He does not mention records. He mentions times that can be corroborated and leaves gaps that sound like routine. The officer studies him. The boy feels his own heartbeat as a physical thing, but he does not let it reach his face. "There has been concern," the officer says. "Files misfiled, keys sticking, little irregularities." The boy nods, as if he too is bothered by inefficiency. "Perhaps the archive clerk is careless, Herr Untersturmführer." The officer's eyes brighten, amused again. "You think so?" The boy shrugs slightly, careful. "I only notice he coughs and drops things." A beat. Then the officer leans back. "You are observant," he says. "That can be useful or dangerous." The boy meets his gaze just enough to seem brave. "I want to be useful, Herr Untersturmführer." It is the line the enemy wants to hear. It tastes like metal in his mouth. The officer closes the file. "Go," he says, "and remember, the uniform is not yours, it is ours. You carry it only because we allow it." The boy stands, salutes, and leaves. His knees feel weak in the corridor, but he keeps his stride even. He has survived a probe, not a full investigation, not yet, but the pressure is increasing. The clock is tightening, not just on transports, but on his cover.
That night, the resistance acts. Not heroically, not with explosions that make headlines, with the quiet violence of logistics. They cannot derail a train openly. The reprisals would be catastrophic. Instead, they use the information to move people before the roundups. They send warnings to safe houses in the Northern District. They arrange false work permits. They prepare hiding places in basements and attics. They shift families at night in 2s and 3s because moving crowds draws eyes. They also plan sabotage that looks like accident. A mislabeled rail car, a delayed engine part, a damaged switch. Small delays compound. A transport schedule can be disrupted by hours, and hours can be used to slip people through cracks. The boy does not see these actions directly. He only feels their echo in the SS building. Angry officers, phones ringing, clerks retyping lists. The administrative wing becomes a hive of irritation. On day 7, the commanders meet behind closed doors. The boy is assigned to stand outside, guarding the corridor, an honor that feels like a trap. He is stationed near the door with 2 other young men. The door is thick, but sound leaks through wood like breath through cloth. He hears fragments. Leak. Undermined. We will make examples. Search the offices. Interrogate the clerks. The word Juden is spoken with casual contempt, as if describing vermin rather than humans. The boy's jaw tightens. He keeps it from tightening too much. At 1100, a new protocol is implemented. Messengers must sign in and out of the administrative wing. A ledger appears at the corridor entrance. The corporal watches it. Each movement now leaves ink. Ink is a noose. The boy's work becomes harder. His access narrows. The heist-like clarity of the early days, free corridors, casual guards, shifts into a tighter maze. He adapts. Adaptation is survival. If he can no longer roam, he must make information come to him. He volunteers for tasks that put him near the commander's offices, delivering coffee, carrying maps, emptying wastbaskets. Wastbaskets are archives of what men think is unimportant. He learns which wastbaskets are emptied by janitors and which are emptied by the messengers. The commander's wastbaskets are emptied by a specific janitor at 1800 each day. The janitor is old, half-deaf, resentful. The boy cannot bribe him with money. Money is meaningless in famine. He bribes him with cigarettes stolen from recruits. Cigarettes are currency. The janitor accepts, eyes narrowed, not friendly, but practical. The protocol. At 1755, the boy will be in the corridor with an empty sack. At 1800, the janitor will hand him the commander's wastbag, tied with string, pretending it is routine trash. The boy will take it to the incinerator room in the basement where trash is burned. But he will not burn it immediately. He will inspect it in the boiler room's shadow where steam and coal dust mask movement.
The basement is another geography. Stairs down from corridor D, a locked door with a small window. The boiler room is hot, loud, humid. Men shovel coal. The noise is constant. Noise is cover. Noise is also distraction. Mistakes happen in noise. On the first attempt, he opens the waste bag with a razor blade. Inside, coffee grounds, crumpled napkins, and then paper. A torn memo, half burned at the edge. A map fragment with pencil marks. He flattens them quickly, reads. The memo references a conference at a nearby villa, names of SS commanders, a date and time, a list of attendees. It is not a transport order, but it is movement of leadership which matters. Leaders traveling are vulnerable. Leaders meeting means plans being made. He cannot copy the papers here. He has no carbon sheet. Instead, he memorizes. He repeats the date and time in his mind until it becomes rhythmic. Then he re-crumples the papers, puts them back, reties the bag, and burns it. Burning is necessary.
Leaving trash unburned would raise suspicion. At 20:30, he goes to the bakery. Shoelace, scarf signal. He drops a matchbox with a tiny note. Conference, Villa, Friday, 0900. Names. He lists 3 names, the ones most important. The resistance will fill in the rest. Every transmission tightens the psychological vice. Each night, he sleeps in a room full of men who talk about duty and cleansing, who laugh about raids, who drink and sing. He must laugh at the right moments, not too much, not too little. He must keep his face neutral when they tell jokes that turn human suffering into entertainment. He must swallow his disgust, because disgust is visible. He must swallow his fear, because fear is visible. He swallows so much, he sometimes feels hollow. He also feels an odd, dangerous thing: competence. He becomes good at this. He becomes good at being SS adjacent, good at reading men, good at moving unseen. That competence is a weapon, but it is also a stain. He worries that the uniform is teaching him something about himself he does not want to know, that under pressure he can perform cruelty's rituals without vomiting. This is the moral complexity he cannot speak aloud. Resistance can require a kind of acting that leaves residue. He is resisting, but he is also learning to pass as the enemy. The line between performance and transformation is thin, and he watches it like a man watching ice under his feet. Weeks pass in tight increments. Each week has its own deadlines: transports, conferences, inspections. The boy's world is measured in stamps and shift changes. The SS's suspicion intensifies. They begin random checks. They inspect messengers' pockets. They seal archive doors with wax stamps that crack if opened. They assign a second guard near records during certain hours.
The boy changes strategy again. Instead of entering the archive, he targets the duplication room. The duplication room is where clerks make carbon copies of orders. It is located on the ground floor, behind a door marked Repro. Inside, a mimeograph machine, stacks of paper, ink that stains everything. The room is staffed by 2 clerks who work in shifts. Clerk A from 0700 to 1500, Clerk B from 1500 to 2300. Clerk B drinks. Drinking makes him sloppy. The boy learns that at 15:10, during the shift handover, both clerks are in the corridor for a cigarette, leaving the repro room unlocked for exactly 3 minutes. Exactly 3 minutes, because the machine cannot be left unattended longer, and because their cigarette is rationed. They smoke fast. The boy plans a snatch and glance. He does not need to steal a document, only to see what is on the top tray. He positions himself in the corridor at 15:08 with a stack of empty forms, pretending to be waiting for copies. He watches the clerks exit at 15:10, laughing, lighting cigarettes. At 15:11, he steps into Repro. The room smells of ink and alcohol. On the tray, a fresh stack of copies, top page visible. He reads the header, Sonderbehandlung, special treatment. The word is a euphemism, and euphemisms are where truth hides. He reads the first lines. It references a special action scheduled for the Northern District, a follow-up to the disrupted transport. It lists units, times, assembly points. Assembly point, courtyard of school number 4, 0500. Truck allocation, 3. Escort, SS detachment. It is a raid plan. They are adapting. The resistance must adapt faster. He cannot copy the whole page. He rips off a tiny corner containing the unit designation and time, something that can be used to verify and warn. He replaces the page, aligns the stacks so the missing corner is hidden beneath, and exits. He is out before 15:13.
In the corridor, he resumes his posture of waiting. The clerks return, still smoking, and one of them tosses him the copies without looking. The boy's heart hammers behind his ribs like a fist on a door. That night, the dead drop receives the corner, wrapped in wax paper. The resistance now knows School Number 4, 0500, unit designation. They can move people away from that assembly point. They can prepare ambushes. They can warn the district. But warning people is not enough. The SS begins sealing neighborhoods. They impose curfews. They conduct searches. They shoot hostages as deterrence. The city becomes a tightening fist. The boy's risk rises. His value rises too. A handler, this time a man, meets him not at the bakery, but at a tram stop, briefly in the crush of bodies. The man's voice is low, calm. "They suspect a leak," he says, without moving his lips much. "They will look among clerks and messengers."
The boy keeps his eyes forward. "Then I should stop," he whispers. The man's hand brushes his elbow, passing a folded newspaper. Inside the newspaper, a tiny photograph, grainy, a face. "This is an SS officer," the man murmurs. "He is close to the commanders. We need to know his schedule, where he sleeps, where he goes. He has access to lists." The boy looks at the photograph with his peripheral vision. The face is not the riding crop officer. Different jaw, different eyes. "How?" the boy whispers. "Become indispensable," the man says. "Get assigned to his wing. He likes efficiency. Make him notice you." The paradox deepens. To survive, he must be invisible. To gather this new intelligence, he must be noticed by the right person in the right way. Being noticed is like stepping into light while hunters watch. Back in the compound, he engineers small displays of competence. He anticipates needs. He delivers files before being asked. He keeps the corridor ledger perfectly. He corrects a minor error in a requisition list, politely. He becomes the kind of messenger officers appreciate because he reduces their friction. One afternoon, the targeted SS officer appears in the corridor. He is older, mid-30s, hair neatly parted, boots polished, expression controlled. He carries himself like a man who believes he is part of history, not just a participant. The boy waits until the officer's adjutant drops his stack of folders on the wrong desk. The boy approaches with the folders, as if helpful. "Herr Hauptsturmführer," he says softly, "those files are for Office 14. The adjutant may have mixed them." The officer's eyes flick to him, a brief assessment, then a nod. "You have a good eye," the officer says. The boy salutes. "I try to be useful, Herr Hauptsturmführer." The officer studies him for a moment longer. "Report to my wing tomorrow, 0800. We need someone who doesn't waste time." Assignment achieved, target acquired, but now the boy is closer to the furnace. The commander's wing is quieter, cleaner, fewer people, more scrutiny, doors thicker, guards sharper. The boy is given a new protocol. He must announce himself before entering any office, must never linger, must keep his hands visible. The wing has its own key ring, kept by the adjutant. The boy is not allowed to carry keys. That is fine. Keys are not the only way in. He learns the officer's routine. The Hauptsturmführer arrives at 0815. He drinks coffee at 0830. He meets with a commander at 9 o'clock on Wednesdays. He dictates letters at 11 o'clock. He takes lunch at 13 o'clock, always in the same room. He leaves at 7 o'clock. His adjutant stays until 20 o'clock.
The boy's opportunity is the dictation. During dictation, the officer speaks while the adjutant types. The boy is often in the room, standing by the door, ready to take outgoing envelopes. He hears names, numbers, instructions. He hears language that turns murder into procedure. One day, the officer dictates, regarding the Jewish labor detail, reduce rations by 20%, increase output expectations, punish sabotage with immediate measures. The boy's stomach knots. He thinks of his mother's hands, how they looked when she last washed dishes, knuckles red. He does not know where she is now. He does not know if she is alive. The officer is shaping lives like adjusting inventory. The boy's role requires him to carry these orders to other offices. Each time he does, he feels a small fracture inside. He is enabling the machine by moving its papers, and yet his presence in the room is how he hears what will happen next. If he refuses, he dies and learns nothing. If he continues, he lives and can warn others. The moral equation never balances cleanly. He becomes careful with his own mind. He creates compartments, like drawers in the archive. In one drawer, the role, the uniform, the salutes, the obedience. In another, the mission, the notes, the dead drops. In another, the grief he cannot afford to feel. He locks the grief away because it would flood everything. The resistance now asks for something harder. Identify where lists are kept overnight. The Hauptsturmführer's office has a safe. The safe likely contains the master transport lists. The safe is behind a painting. The boy sees the officer open it once, briefly, using a combination dial. The officer's hand blocks the dial. The boy cannot see the numbers. But people betray themselves in small movements. The officer's fingers hesitate at certain points, as if counting. The boy watches not the dial, but the officer's shoulder, the micro pauses. He times them. One pause longer, then a shorter, then a medium. It is not enough to guess the combination, but it suggests a pattern, perhaps dates, perhaps unit numbers. He needs another angle, the adjutant. The adjutant is younger, 22, tired, less ideological, more trapped. He complains quietly about work, about headaches. The boy does not befriend him. Friendship is dangerous. He becomes useful. He brings aspirin. He brings extra coffee. He makes the adjutant's life easier, and in doing so, he becomes someone the adjutant ignores. One evening, at 1945, the adjutant sends the boy to fetch forms from repro. The boy returns with the forms and finds the adjutant alone in the office, shoulders slumped, tie loosened. The Hauptsturmführer is gone. The safe is closed. The painting hangs slightly askew. The adjutant rubs his eyes. "Put those on the desk," he says. Carefully, the boy sets the forms down, then hesitates as if uncertain. "Herr Unteroffizier," he says quietly, "the Hauptsturmführer asked me earlier about the safe inventory. I don't know where the list is kept." The adjutant looks up, irritated. "The inventory list," he says, "in the top drawer, but don't touch it." Quietly, the boy nods as if chastened. Of course. But now he knows. Top drawer. And drawers are easier than safes. The next day, he watches the adjutant open the top drawer. The key is on a ring with two other keys. The ring is kept in the adjutant's pocket, not accessible, unless... Shift change. At 2000, the adjutant leaves the wing, handing duty to a night guard who sits at the corridor desk. The night guard is old, bored. The wing is quiet. The boy is not supposed to be there after 1900, but he can create a reason, a late errand for the Hauptsturmführer, signed earlier. He forges nothing. Forgery is a cliff. Instead, he uses a real signed note, repurposed. He has kept an old errand slip in his pocket, one the corporal signed with no date. The slip is dangerous, but also useful. He writes a date on it in ink matching the corporal's pen. He has stolen that pen for this purpose. The handwriting is not identical, but close.
close enough for a bored guard. At 20:10, he approaches the wing desk, holding the slip. The night guard squints. "You're late," the guard says. "Orders," the boy says, and keeps his tone flat, as if this is normal. The guard grunts, waves him through. The uniform again is a passkey. The boy walks to the Hauptsturmführer's office. The corridor is dim. The guards at each end are seated, reading newspapers. He enters the office quietly, closes the door. Inside, he moves with procedural speed. He does not rummage. Rummaging looks like panic. He goes straight to the desk, straight to the top drawer. Locked. He cannot pick the lock. He must use the keyring impression trick again, but he cannot get soap and press it against a key that is in a pocket. Too risky. So he chooses a different target, the trash. The Hauptsturmführer's desk has a wastebasket. He checks it. Paper. He lifts it, looks under. Sometimes people hide keys under the wastebasket or inside the rim, like a childish trick. Not here. He opens the desk's lower drawer. Unlocked. Inside, forms, stamps, a spare key ring with a single key labeled desk. The adjutant keeps a spare, of course. Bureaucrats fear being locked out more than being compromised. The boy takes the spare key, tries it on the top drawer. It fits. He turns. The drawer opens. With quiet intensity, inside, a folder marked with the Hauptsturmführer's initials. He opens it. A list, typed, clean. Transport allocations. Not names, but numbers. Districts, dates, rail lines, a confirmation stamp. This is the skeleton of mass movement. He cannot copy it all. He needs the critical parts. Next transport date, district, rail line, assembly point. He pulls out his carbon sheet, places it beneath his blank sheet, and presses with the spoon. He copies the key lines in under 2 minutes. Then he hears footsteps in the corridor, closer, faster, not the slow boredom of guards, someone moving with purpose. He freezes, half-copied sheet. His mind calculates, if caught in this office after hours with the drawer open, he is dead. Urgent, controlled. He closes the drawer softly, slides the spare key back where it was, tucks the carbon copy sheet inside his shirt. He moves to the window.
The office window looks onto a small inner courtyard. The courtyard has a paved path, a low wall, and beyond it, the service corridor leading to the boiler room. The window is latched, but not locked. He lifts it. Cold air bites. He climbs out, boots scraping softly on the sill, drops into the courtyard, knees bending to absorb sound. He stays low, moving along the wall's shadow. Behind him, the office door opens, a voice inside sharp. "Who left this unlocked?" Another voice, the night guard, confused. "No one." The boy reaches the service corridor door, locked. He feels along the frame. There is a small gap at the bottom. He remembers, the boiler room door is sometimes propped for ventilation, but this is the wrong door. He runs his hand along the wall, finds a drain pipe. He climbs, fingers numb, to a small ledge beneath a window into the service corridor. The window is cracked open. He pushes. It opens enough for him to slip through. He drops into the corridor, landing on concrete. He listens. No one here. The boiler room hums nearby. He moves quickly, but quietly down the service corridor, then down the stairs into the basement. In the boiler room, the coalmen glance at him, see uniform, assume errand. He passes through. The noise swallows him. He exits through the basement door that leads to the courtyard used for deliveries. From there, he can reach the sewer entrance in 5 minutes, but it is too soon. If someone is watching for him, he will lead them to the contact point. He needs to cool the trail. He returns to the barracks first, as if he had been running an errand for the night guard.
He enters, checks in, is seen. He waits 40 minutes, lying on his bunk, eyes open, heart still racing. At 2200, when night shift change distracts the compound, he slips out again using the latrine excuse. The compound's perimeter is quieter at this hour. Guards are alert, but fewer civilians are moving outside, making any movement more visible. He must use darkness. He chooses the sewer route anyway, because the information cannot wait. The transport skeleton he copied gives the resistance a chance to anticipate the next move, perhaps to sabotage more effectively, perhaps to move more people. At 2230, he reaches the municipal courtyard. It is empty now. The sewer hatch is cold, wet. He descends, water up to his ankles, breath controlled. The courier is there, waiting. The boy passes the carbon sheet, wrapped in wax paper, into gloved hands. "Anything happened?" the courier whispers. "They're tightening," the boy whispers. "They're looking." The courier pauses. "Then this may be your last," he says, not as drama, but as logistics. "If they close the corridors, you won't move." The boy nods. He knows. He has known since the day he put on the uniform that the end would not be heroic. It would be abrupt, administrative, a file closed.
Upground, the SS reacts to the breach. The next morning, the Hauptsturmführer is furious. He interrogates guards, he checks locks, he inspects drawers. He cannot prove theft, but he senses violation. Violated men become dangerous. He orders new protocols, double locks, seals, random searches. He also orders an audit of personnel backgrounds. Paper will now be used to hunt the boy, the way paper has been used to hunt his people. The boy's forged identity becomes a ticking bomb. The audit will compare his papers to regional registries. If the forged stamp is discovered, the chain will lead to him. Time compresses again. He has days, perhaps less. He receives a signal at the bakery. The woman passes, touches the basket handle twice. Watched. Abort. He keeps walking, heart sinking. If the bakery is burned, the dead drop is compromised. If the dead drop is compromised, his outward channel is cut. The resistance shifts protocols. A new method arrives, a coded message in a newspaper advertisement. The boy is told, via a scribble slipped into his pocket by a sympathetic clerk, to look at the classifieds in the evening paper. Third column, second ad for bicycles. If it reads excellent condition, it means meet at the river bridge. If it reads needs repair, it means no contact. He reads the ad. It reads needs repair, no contact. The net is tightening on both sides. Inside the compound, he becomes hyper-aware of attention. Eyes linger. Guards ask questions that sound casual but aren't. A corporal remarks on his accent. The riding crop officer passes and smiles too long. The boy realizes something chilling. His competence, which helped him, now makes him stand out. The enemy notices efficiency when the system is under stress. He has made himself useful, and usefulness draws light. He needs an exit. Resistance work is not only infiltration, it is extraction. If he stays, he will be caught and tortured, and under torture he may betray names without meaning to. He cannot allow his own pain to become the enemy's tool. The resistance has prepared a route out, not through gates, but through the service tunnels that connect the compound's boiler room to a disused storm drain leading to the river. The storm drain is accessed through a maintenance hatch behind the coal pile, opened with a square wrench kept on a hook. The boy has seen the wrench. He has seen the hatch. He has not used it. Using it means abandoning the uniform, abandoning the inside. It means choosing survival and future usefulness over continued access. It is a moral and tactical decision.
He waits for a moment when leaving will not immediately trigger a manhunt. That moment comes unexpectedly because nothing in such a system is perfect. On a foggy morning, an air raid siren sounds. The city's defenses are weak, but the siren triggers protocol. The compound goes into partial lockdown, but also confusion. Guards move to shelters. Clerks scramble to secure documents. The corridors fill with hurried boots.
The boy is sent to carry files to the basement safe room. He carries them, but he also carries his decision. In the basement, the boiler room door is propped open for ventilation. Coalmen shout over the roar. The fog outside makes the world dim even at midday. Visibility is reduced. Reduced visibility is opportunity. At 11:30, during the siren's wail, he slips into the boiler room with a stack of files as cover. He sets the files down near the safe room entrance as if obeying orders. Then he moves behind the coal pile where the maintenance hatch sits low, rusted, half-hidden. He reaches for the square wrench on the hook. His hand trembles slightly. He forces it still. He inserts the wrench into the square hatch's slot, turns. The hatch resists, then gives with a grinding sound masked by the siren in the boiler. He lifts the hatch. A cold draft rises from below, smelling of damp stone. The storm drain. He climbs down. The ladder is slimy. His boots slip once. He catches himself, heart and throat, but no one hears. The roar above covers everything. Below, the tunnel is narrow, water trickling along the center. He moves crouched, hand on the wall, counting turns. Left at the first junction, straight for 30 paces, right where the ceiling lowers. He has memorized this from a resistance diagram once shown briefly, then burned. Behind him, above, the compound continues its life. He is leaving it like leaving a burning house through a cellar. The tunnel leads to a larger drain that runs toward the river. The sound of water grows. The air grows colder. He moves faster, muscles aching from crouching. At one point, he reaches a grating where daylight filters through, faint, gray. He pauses, listening. No voices, no footsteps, only water and the distant siren. He pushes onward until he reaches the final exit, a rusted iron grate at river level, hidden behind reeds. He pushes. It sticks. He presses his shoulder, feels metal bite into his uniform. The uniform catches, tears slightly. He freezes, breath held, listening. No one. He pushes again. The grate shifts enough for him to squeeze through, scraping his ribs. He emerges into fog by the river. The world is muted, colors drained. He is still in the uniform. He looks like a ghost of the enemy stepping out of the earth. He cannot walk into the city like this. A civilian might alert a patrol. A German might challenge him. He must change. Under a bridge abutment, he strips the uniform off, hands shaking now that the immediate danger has shifted into a different kind. He folds it, not as reverence, but as practicality. Cloth can be reused, or burned, or traded. He pulls on civilian clothes wrapped in oilcloth and left in a hollow behind a stone, prepared by the resistance. A coat that smells of damp wool, a cap that makes him look like any other boy. He stuffs the uniform into a sack, ties it, and leaves it in the drained shadow. He does not want to carry it into the world. He has carried it long enough. He walks along the riverbank toward a safe house, keeping to fog and reeds. He does not run. Running draws attention. He walks like someone with nowhere to be, which is the truest performance he has ever done. In the safe house, a woman opens the door a crack, sees his face, and for a second her eyes harden. Fear, suspicion. Then she recognizes him from the resistance description, the boy who wore the uniform. She lets him in quickly, bolting the door.
Inside there is warmth, the smell of soup, the sound of whispered prayers. The boy's hands tremble now, not from cold, but from release. He sits on a chair, and the chair feels unfamiliar because it is not in barracks, not under inspection, not under a slogan. The resistance leader, older, face-lined, asks him questions in a low voice. "What did you get?" he asks. The boy speaks in concrete terms because that is how he has survived. Transport skeleton, dates, rail lines, assembly points, units, conference at villa, names, he says. He lists them methodically, like reading a ledger. He does not speak of fear. He does not speak of guilt. He speaks of what can be acted on. The leader nods, jaw tight. "This will save people," he says. "Not everyone, not enough, but some. In war, some is a number worth risking everything for." The boy asks one question, the one he has avoided because it might break the compartments. He asks one question, the one he has avoided because it might break the compartments. "My family," he says, voice small. The leader looks away. "We don't know," he says. "We rarely know." The boy absorbs that, face still. Inside, something collapses quietly. He has been running on mission oxygen. Now there is room for grief, and it comes like a slow flood. But the story does not end with catharsis. It ends with continuation, because resistance is not an ending. It is a series of choices under pressure. The boy cannot go back into the compound. His cover will be audited. His absence will be noticed. The SS will search for him. They will question messengers, clerks, janitors. They will punish someone because systems punish to reassure themselves they are in control. He also understands something else, and this is the transformation promised near the beginning. Survival under tyranny is not only about bravery or luck. It is about procedures, about time windows, about keys and corridors, about the meticulous use of the enemy's own routines against them, about turning bureaucracy, that cold instrument of mass violence, into a source of intelligence that can be used to pry open a few doors before they slam shut. In the weeks that follow, he becomes a different kind of operative. No longer inside, he helps plan routes, safe houses, document forgeries. He teaches others what he learned: how guards overlap shifts, how seals break, how officers talk when they think no one matters is listening. He teaches them to look for the administrative heartbeat behind the terror. Sometimes, at night, he wakes, sweating, hearing boots in corridors that are no longer around him. Sometimes he dreams of the mirror, the rune on his sleeve, and in the dream he cannot find the prayer scrap in his pocket. In the dream, the uniform has eaten him completely. In daylight, he works. He carries messages again, but now in civilian hands, through streets, through sewers, through crowds. He is still a messenger. He has always been a messenger. The difference is the costume, the risk, the kind of invisibility required. He will never be clean of what he wore. He will never fully shake the sensation of saluting men who would have murdered him if they knew his name. He will never fully resolve the guilt of the moments when civilians flinched at him, and he let them because he had to. But he will also never forget the other truth, that for a time, in the heart of the enemy's administrative wing, a Jewish teenager used their own schedules and protocols against them. He turned their corridors into a map, their keys into impressions, their trash into revelations. He stole not jewels, not money, but time, hours, days, enough for people to vanish into basements, enough for a raid to strike empty doors, enough for a transport to be delayed and frayed. In a war where most people are reduced to numbers on paper, he learned to read the paper before it became fate. And he learned, painfully, that sometimes the only way to fight a machine from the inside is to wear its uniform while keeping your soul hidden like contraband, folded small, pressed tight, and carried through every checkpoint without being found.